Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Let's continue with our saga, shall we? The next logical thing to do is investigate who were the Huns. Remember, I'm building a case. According to Wikipedia under Hun, origins, quote, the Huns were a confederation of warrior bands with an S, ready to integrate other groups to increase their military power in the Eurasian steppes in the 4th to 6th century AD. Listen up. Most aspects of their ethnogenesis, which includes their language and their links to other peoples of the steppe, are uncertain. Stop. Bingo. The reason for the uncertainty is because the Huns were a separate civilization of people invading the Earth's circuit that wasn't theirs. How do I know? Because even those with letters behind their names will admit the civilization of the Huns' ethnogenesis, which means the beginning, coming into being, the formation and development of an ethnic group, they admit they haven't a clue where these people came from or who seeded them. Only conjecture and speculation. This is where the conspiracy part rears its hoary head back up again. What I mean is, you and I are 1,500 years behind the times. But get this now. The very people whose claim to fame was being a chronicler of the times, you know, the Romans and the ancient Greeks, ancient Greeks. Well, am I the only person who find it extremely interesting? The very nations that prided themselves on detail are nearly devoid of description of the people who they even term the scourge of the earth. What I mean is, modern day historians have only been able to come up with 7 or 8 descriptions of the Huns, which we will explore. And let me tell you this, they are all described in different territories, and they are all described looking very differently. Sometimes only the mere resemblance of a man. But the very fact that chroniclers of that day didn't have numerous descriptions and origins of the beast that tamed their savages, well, it's madness. But wait! As we will soon read, Rome used the Huns as mercenaries throughout the empire, a move that would later cost them the very thing they were trying to protect. I may have a regular educated guess on this matter, and these next few videos should tell us the answer to those burning questions and proof of who they are today. Let's continue, please. Quote, most aspects of their ethnogenesis, including their language and their links to other peoples of the steppes, are uncertain. Walter Pohl explicitly states, personal quote, all we can say safely is that the name Huns in late antiquity described prestigious ruling groups of steppe warriors. Stop. Bingo. Didn't we discover the angelic evildoers were responsible for the ruling class upon this fallen earth? Yes, we did. Notice, it says prestigious ruling groups with an S of steppe warriors. And with an empire so vast and accompanied by an entire civilization of people, remember, they blanketed the entire top of Europe and Asia and pushed down. Surely they would be the prestigious ruling administrators of each city or district of their new empire. Ladies and gentlemen, this can only mean whoever was in control of the entire region was probably a Hun. And because the ruling classes have not changed much over 1,500 years, yes, the religions have, but the people are the same. Even the Israelis. I will explain later. Which can only mean whoever is in control today is probably the seed of a Hun. I know it sounds simplistic and you don't believe me now, but I bid you to wait until the fat white lady sings. But as far as this video is concerned, let's continue, please. Quote, The Roman historian Ammianus Marcellius, who completed his work of the history of the Roman Empire in the early 390s, recorded that the, personal quote, people of the Huns dwell beyond the Sea of Azov, near the frozen ocean. Stop. Bingo, bingo. Why two bingos, you ask? The first bingo is for yet another indicator the Huns were a civilization of people and not just a branch. How? Because the historian made sure to keep the reader's mind open to many different people within the same banner by elaborately saying, quote, the people of the Huns, with an S, dwell beyond the Sea of Azov, near the frozen ocean. That can only mean multiple people under the Hun name. The second bingo was because if you look at the maps provided, the Sea of Azov is directly over and somewhat adjacent to the top of the Black Sea. Before you start to pin the tail on the savages, take into account he said this particular spur of them, quote, dwell beyond the Sea of Azov, near the frozen ocean. Now, seeing that the Sea of Azov, A-Z-O-V, is the northernmost water mass before you get to the Arctic Ocean, and the seed of Adam didn't deal with anything beyond our Earth circuit, which stops at the Sea of Azov in northern Turkey, the only logical thing to do now is to investigate what, quote, near the frozen ocean actually means. When you look at the maps provided, hopefully you will see something interesting like I did. What did I see, you ask? I see the end of Russia and an Arctic Ocean that is not frozen. Cold, yes. Frozen, no. But I also see, when I get a magnifying glass and squint my eyes real tight, I see there is a sea within the Arctic Ocean called the Ice Sea, which matches up with the North Pole. Please remember, people, the Rus Scythians were hauling ass too, which can only mean this particular band of Huns had to live within the Arctic Circle above the uttermost Scythians and Alans. And if you look at the maps and the images provided again, you will see many islands all around the Arctic Sea, even close to the Ice Sea. What? That's it? You demand to know who they are and where they came from? Oh, ye of little patience. Okay, I guess since we are at this junction, it will be okay to give you what I thought was my big fig Newton now. But first, allow me to ask you a question, gentle strangers. What if there was a land extension that connected the Russia and the North Pole? Let me say that again. Eliminate this word. Sorry. What if there was a land extension that connected Russia and the North Pole, and there was a global flood and wiped out the extension? My question is, where do you think the people will go? Before you answer, what if I told you in one direction, extreme cold, brrr, and in the other direction, heat? Again, which direction do you think the people will gravitate towards? The heat towards the south, dummy, is what most of you are probably saying. And I must admit, you are right about going towards the heat, that is. Towards the south part, maybe not so much. Let me explain. According to AOL, under NASA image of Earth reignites North Pole is hollow conspiracy, May 23rd, 2016. Quote, NASA's new pictures of Earth are reigniting conspiracy theories straight out of Journey to the Center of the Earth. These are previously unreleased images of our blue marble planet, showing the North Pole and what appears to be a giant hole there. Now conspiracy theorists say NASA is hiding the fact that Earth is really hollow and that inside is another world with aliens and animals that look like woolly mammoth living there. Example. Too bizarre to believe, you say? Look at the images of how the Earth deals with the sun's solar flares, people. Notice, instead of passing over us, it travels to both poles and back out in a separate path. Look at it again. Look at it again. Here's another news title among a plethora of news outlets reporting on NASA's picture. According to The Mirror, UK, under NASA's image shows giant hole at North Pole leading to hollow Earth conspiracy theorists claim. May 24, 2016. Example. I don't know if this is true or not. I will leave that up to you. But we do know the Huns came from above everyone else and surprised the crap out of everyone in the process. Allow me to be presumptuous for just a minute and ask you a question, gentle strangers. If this is true, this would answer just about every question that can be asked in regards to who, what, where, and how. What I mean is, this would prove yet again the Bible is authentic and the only document, thus the only God, that is outside of time. This would tell us where some of them went during the flood. It would verify all of the prophecies dealing with the nations talking to the people under the earth. It would prove the savage Indians weren't lying when they said they and giants came out of tunnels in the earth. It would prove the archaeological discoveries in Upper Siberia of metallithic stones that dwarf anything ever cut out of a quarry, seamlessly put together with precise cut grooves and shafts that go straight down. Google it. It will give a legitimate reason to why the sea peoples surprised them with ships large enough to bring their entire clans. It would make all of the end time prophecies of monsters and giants coming out of the ends of the earth make perfect sense. It would prove that there is no way in Hades, the same seed that was cursed to hate you and holding up to their end of the bargain pretty good, I might say. No way can that people be your people. Remember, the monsters and giants kingdoms will come on the earth at different times too. It will give understanding to why destroying and polluting the surface of the earth is no big thing to them. This would prove the Canadian Indians were not lying when they say they walked across a landmass connecting Europe and Canada. This would explain the differences in anatomy, physiology, and mental mind twists between the white man and Turks, wink wink, listen up, and the aboriginal people of the earth, etc., etc., etc. But again, all of that was if you believe NASA's picture or not. It helps my theory, but it doesn't break my theory if you don't. Let's continue with the original article, shall we? Quote, the Roman historian Amanitus Marcellius, who completed his work of the history of the Roman Empire in the early 390s, recorded that the people of the Huns dwell beyond the Sea of Azov, near the frozen ocean. Jerome associated them with the Scythians in a letter written 4 years after the Huns invaded the empire's eastern provinces in 395. Stop. Remember when I warned you about their unholy synonymous talk? Well, they just hit you with one. Where? What part, you wonder? It's in the, quote, Jerome associated them with the Scythians in a letter part. See, if someone that wanted to believe heard that, they would automatically think Jerome is calling the Huns the Scythians. The cementing element is the mention of his letter only being 4 years removed. But that is not what is truly being said at all. Check it out. Let's continue. Quote, Jerome associated them with the Scythians in a letter written 4 years after the Huns invaded the empire's eastern province in 395. The equation of the Huns with the Scythians, together with a general fear of the coming of the Antichrist in the late 4th century, gave rise to their identification with Gog and Magog. Stop. I told you. We will revisit the Gog and Magog story in the next video. Okay, we are going to skip over scholars dismantling the theory the Huns are the Xiongnu, Xiongnu, people of China. Very compelling evidence against such theories. For instance, take this very interesting discovery. Knowing what we know now, Miss Elliott, what do you perceive when you hear this? Quote, the Huns practice artificial cranial deformation. But there is no evidence of such practice among the Xiongnu. This custom had already been practiced in the Eurasian steppes in the Bronze Age and in the early Iron Age, but it disappeared around 500 BC. It again started to spread among the local inhabitants of the region of the Talas River and the Pamir Mountains, Pamir Mountains, in the 1st century BC. In addition to the Huns, the custom is also evidenced among the Yaqzi, Yuezhi, and Alans. The lengthy ponytail, which was a characteristic of the Xiongnu, was not documented among the Huns. Stop. I perceive they weren't artificially elongated at all. And even if they were, the people were emulating something else more powerful than themselves. Question. Did you see how many different nations spread across the upper Earth circuit that had elongated heads? The Yaqzi, Yuezhi, is the exact same area, land, and peoples the Kurgans conquered. And the Alans were Indo-Iranians who lived just above the Caucasus Mountains. Wait a minute. Just like the Indian of the Americas. Peru is said to be littered with those type of skulls. Saying that, allow me to be presumptuous again with our NASA information. Would it be? Could this be? Where entire civilizations disappeared at once out of those same Peru jungles? Look at the map of the North Pole again. Okay, if you were a nation of undomesticated despots with the command to subdue the earth, and you were coming out of the top of the earth, question, why are we thinking they would only go in one direction? And if the map is even half correct, wouldn't it have been just as easy for them to get to North America as Europe? Would this be? Could this be? The reason opposite continents have the same bloodlines, metholithic monuments, accounts of giants, lifestyle, war paint, dress, savagery, compulsion for maxing out on firewater, talking about the Russians and the Native Americans, etc. Two opposite continents, yet they do the exact same things. And just think, it would take the same amount of time to get to each one. Interesting indeed, huh? Think about it biblically for just a minute. They could taint the promised land and the land of our bondage with the serpent seed. It would be wicked genius if the NASA story is correct. But let's continue, please. Quote, the Romans became aware of the Huns when the Hunnic invasion of the Teutonic steppe forced thousands of Goths to move to the lower Danube to seek refuge in the Roman Empire in 376, according to the contemporaries Amminus Marcellus. Their sudden appearance in the written sources suggests that the Huns crossed the Volga River from the east not much earlier. Stop. Bingo. This proves the Huns were not a roving band of nomads that got a wild hair up their butt to invade the world. There would be more records of their existence from the kingdoms that allowed them safe passage through their kingdoms. No. They came upon them suddenly and out of the blue. And apparently so overwhelming, even the Goths, yes, they sent the legendary debaucherous Goths running like chicks in a panty raid. Let's continue, please. Quote, they invaded the land of the Alans, which was located to the east of the Don River, slaughtering many of them, listen up, and forcing the survivors to submit themselves to them or to flee across the Don. I'm going to read that again. They invaded the land of the Alans, which was located to the east of the Don River, slaughtering many of them and forcing the survivors to submit themselves to them or to flee across the Don. Stop. Bingo. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt. This was a plan to amalgamate and hide through history. How? Didn't watching Shaka Zulu teach you anything? If you were coming to destroy and supplant, you leave no enemy behind. Why? Because sooner or later, you will see that same person on the battlefield again. I can see submit or die, but submit or leave? Really? Who in the Hades does that? To allow the conquered to submit or flee can only mean they wanted them to return one day. What's that, Miss Rita? Oh, snap. Right. I forgot there was another people who did this. Yep. The Sea Peoples. And just like the Sea Peoples had a plan, the Huns had a plan as well. What type of plan, you wonder? Well, I have a regular educated guess about this. It seems, mind you, the civilization of the Huns used the Roman main weapon of war against them. But in reverse. Let me explain. Rome didn't have to fight many battles because they had a practice called a siege. You know, where they would put a blockade around the city and nothing can come in or out. They were prepared to stay there 30 years if need be. And that is exactly what the Huns did. They laid siege to the outer areas and pushed everyone within the borders of Rome. This is why the Huns allowed people to leave if they wanted, knowing full well they only had one direction to go. They created a reverse siege on the Roman Empire through forced overpopulation, and in true Hegelian dialect fashion, negotiated with Rome to release some of the pressure from the pipe. But that was only the tricky part of the plan, though. Here comes the big fig news. Knowing full well Rome cannot afford to allow a sitting civilization to surround it, a civilization that they knew can crush them at will, they craftily bargained to allow those same warriors that would overrun Rome to fight for Rome throughout its empire. Guess what? That is what the Huns wanted in the first place. See, there was no way to overtake Rome at once in a conventional battle array. So do you know what they did? They did like the Sea Peoples did. Think about it like an Army Ranger recon scout deployed in Germany for just a minute. You couldn't take Rome at once without having your warriors in strategic locations throughout the empire without suspicion. So the Huns allowed Rome to use them as mercenaries throughout the entire Roman Empire, so to spread them out without suspicion. Looking at it like this, I'm not too sure the barbarian border raids weren't a ruse by the Huns' kinsmen to cause Rome to react and send troops, the Huns, to that location. But whatever reason it is, when they got the word, almost at once, the massive Hun kingdom was born. That is how I see it. And here's the information that led me to this theory. Let's continue, please. Quote, after they subjected the Alans, the Huns and their Alan auxiliaries started plundering the wealthy settlements of the Grunhungi, or Eastern Goths, to the west of the Don. The Grunhungi king, Ermanaric, resisted for a while, but finally, personal quote, he found release from his fears by taking his own life, according to Ammianus Marcellius. Stop. Question. Why on earth would he fear if the Huns might let him and his people go? Maybe it's because the Huns didn't necessarily look and act exactly like we do. Stay tuned. But let's continue, please. Quote, after these invasions, the Huns begin to be noted as foederati, Foederati, and mercenaries. As early as 380, a group of Huns was given foederati status and allowed to settle in Pannonia, Hungary. Stop. According to Wikipedia under foederati, Foederati. Quote, foederati was any one of several outlying nations to which ancient Rome provided benefits in exchange for military assistance. The term was also used especially under the Roman Empire for groups of barbarian mercenaries of various sizes, who were typically allowed to settle within the Roman Empire. Example. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the exact same plan the Sea Peoples used, the Huns used. It was simple, really. Get paid to put your weapons of war in prime position. Simply put, the mercenaries were being sent to different locations of the empire until they received the orders from Hungary. When they saw it was on, they simply used their elite fighting prowess, for that is the reason the empire was using them as mercenaries. They simply turned on the empire, thus throwing the always strategic Romans into disarray. To prove everything I just said, let's continue, please. Quote, Hunnish mercenaries were also seen on several occasions in the succession struggles of the Eastern and Western Empire during the late 4th century. I'm going to read that again. Hunnish mercenaries were also seen on several occasions in the succession struggles of the Eastern and Western Roman Empire during the late 4th century. However, it is most likely that these were individual mercenary bands, not a Hunnish kingdom. In 395, the Huns began their first large-scale attack on the Eastern Roman Empire. Huns attacked in Thrace, overran Armenia, and pillaged something else. They entered parts of Syria, threatened Antioch, and swarmed through the province of something else. The forces of Emperor Theodosius were fully committed in the west, so the Huns moved unopposed until the end of 398, when the eunuch Eutropius. Stop. Let me tell you about him. This guy was sent to live with the Huns as, those royal hostages. So he lived in the court, but he was taught just like a Hun. He lived as a Hun. But when he came back to Rome, he became one of their, biggest generals, this, that, and the other. So this is him. Let's go back. The forces of Emperor Theodotus were fully committed in the west, so the Huns moved unopposed until the end of 398, when the eunuch, that name, gathered together a force composed of Romans and Goths and succeeded in restoring peace. It is uncertain, though, whether or not that guy forces defeated the Huns or whether the Huns left on their own. There is no record of a notable victory by that name, and there is no evidence that the Hunnish forces were already leaving the area by the time he gathered his forces. Whether to put the fight by that name or leaving on their own, the Huns had left the Eastern Roman Empire by 398. After this, the Huns invaded the Sassanid Empire. This invasion was initially successful, coming close to the capital of the empire at Ctesiphon. However, they were defeated badly by the Persian counterattack and retreated towards the Caucasus Mountain. What? And they retreated towards the Caucasus Mountain via the Derben Pass. Example. Behold, ladies and gentlemen, the modern-day Israeli forefathers. I'm going to prove it. Guess what? Just like the Sea Peoples, the year after Attila died, the Hun kingdom simply disbanded. Yep, all that hell-raising just to disband and blend into the background of history. You don't believe me, do you? According to Wikipedia on the Huns, quote, the Huns may have stimulated the Great Migration, a contributing factor in the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. They formed a unified empire under Attila the Hun, who died in 453. The empire broke up the next year. Example. I told you. Thank you for looking at this video, Mind Marinade. Yah's will. Look for the next. Oh yeah. Let the information sink in deep. Research it for yourselves. We will build off it in the next video.